For the longest time, your life is cut up into enforced chapters. It's all related to your educational system, right? You're in, what is it, kindergarten and pre-primary, and then like primary school begins, then secondary school, then university, and then post-grad. Like, this is generally how it's grouped with the Gregorian calendar. Is that the one we use? God knows, mate. Anyway, you've got the defined chapters externally imposed on kind of somewhat arbitrary stuff. I guess it's always probably been related to the seasons, right? Last summer, what's been he won't survive this winter. That they were probably the OG chapters. For those paying attention, I can imagine myself just being the most absent-minded, useless hunter-gatherer imaginable, where I would just be relying on more observant, hardy, outdoorsy types, hopefully, that were a part of my Dunbar's number, who are hooking a brother up, keeping me alive, slinging a few animal skins my way during the frosty mornings. But yeah, I feel like at a certain point, the chapters in your life, or just uh, a self imposition of chapters, like, okay, I'm now doing this. That old chapter is over. I'm now this type of person, or like, this is my new project. There's kind of like a self identification thing there where people can kind of like purge the old identity and binge on a new one, which I feel like if you are a self aware person, it becomes impossible at a certain point, or redundant, because you kind of like putting a new costume. It's like mutton dressed up as lamb type of vibes where you're like, yeah, still see my Adam's apple and my 5 o'clock shadow. I'm not Bernice. I'm the same old bloke I've always been. You can't. There's certain things you can't change, and the crossover with chapters, or the the ability to create like an ending and then a new beginning, I think becomes more difficult. You realize that life is kind of more nebulous and a choose your own adventure thing. And I guess like the example I would give, and why it's kind of like frustrating, is that you realize that this is happening, but then there is like still the external, everyone else is seemingly committing to this kind of like living their life in chapters trip. So you can't really escape it. The example I would give is like when you I don't know, when you're on vacation or something, and you can go out and get pissed up on a Sunday, or like go to a concert on a school night or something like that, and then because everyone else is on the grid and they have to get up for work or school the next day, then they can't commit to the bit like you can. Whereas you're like, if you're on holiday, you don't have a regular schedule, you're just like, whatever, man. And it's an evening's an evening. And then you go to the show, and then afterwards you're like, where's the kick-ons at? And then you realize like, oh, there's no kick-ons because it's a Sunday night and everyone's like hunkering down, trying to get their 4 hours of sleep so have they can mitigate the hangover somewhat for their Monday morning alarm clock. So even if you decide to be like, I'm free and easy, which is whatever the mood strikes me, I'm following a desire line in whatever direction I choose. If you choose to be that dandy in the postmodern world, it's kind of isolating, or just you're never going to impose complete disorder or frivolity because other people are going by these arbitrary things, because and so therefore the arbitrary boundaries and um segmentation of people's lives do become real, and they do become widespread and accepted because everyone's doing it, and so it doesn't even matter if it's real or not. But I've come to realize that like you, the living your life in chapters things is that there is like the conscious deciding of like, okay, in this period of my life, this is what I'm into, and then from this point forward, I'm going to be doing that. That's like it's a conscious shift. We deciding upon I'm that person then, and I'm this person now. You can decide that, but it's only retrospectively you look back and realize like, oh yeah, I wasn't. I decided I wanted to change then, but I didn't actually change for 3 more years after that. Like I was still hung up on that girl, or I still had this dream of becoming an actor or whatever it is. You can consciously break up with an idea, but your subconscious will do its own thing. And only in time will you get a true understanding of what the actual beginning and ending of the chapter was. Like in books, I find that it's frustrating to me with books where the chapters are very formulaic in terms of like at the beginning of the chapter, it starts with a bang, and then rising tension, and then there's a little twist at the end, and then it leaves you hanging, and then it's there's a standard structure for each chapter that's consistent throughout the entire book, which I guess is like a common page turner type of tactic and whatever. I'm like if it's a good book, it doesn't really doesn't destroy my appreciation of a book if that's the way it's set up. However, I feel like it doesn't align with how life is actually lived. I like books where certain chapters are extremely long and then it has a climax and you think the chapter's going to end, and then for some reason there's like 3 more pages of just random dialogue that, and it ends on a flat note. And then there's other chapters where they're entirely short, they're just like wham bam, a huge bombshell gets dropped, and then like the next one's just a plodding along. The randomness of chapters in the sense that there's like a ghost in the shell. There's someone else driving the ship as opposed to the characters themselves or the narrator themselves. Is appealing to me because I feel like they're the true chapters in my life. That they're the subconscious ones are real. The conscious ones are just my lame attempts to maintain control over my own life, whereas the subconscious ones are like, oh, those were my actual rhythms, which I I'm getting privy to, but only like my past rhythms. I know that there's ones that are happening right now that I'm completely ignorant about, and I'll only figure out what was actually happening in about 5 to 10 years. So anyway, what chapter are you going through? Tell me about your story right now. Thanks for listening. Catch you on the next one.